Can anybody remember seeing that little cartoon that was in the paper? With the horse and cart outside the concert. It was the scrap man. It was, you know, Geordie from down Dells.
Geordie Brown.
Geordie Brown.
Geordie Brown.
The penny tune.
Pretty big sort of steel industry closing down, and you had this horse and cart with a scrap man on.
I don't think anything more could have been done. It was always going to close, it just wasn't viable to keep it open, especially when they built the big furnace at Redcar. Once that was up and running, concert was doomed anyway.
Yeah.
That's my feeling on it anyway.
Well, it's kind of replicating in a sense what Alan's been talking about, yeah.
Just not viable, the transport costs alone. Fetch materials in from deep ports and transporting back out of concert. It was never going to work.
So if you look at the situation now at Redcar, Redcar's reopened after 2-year closure or something like that, so they must think a hell of a lot about Redcar, like they did in them days to keep it open, because it was always hitty-missy.
Redcar's like that now, it's struggling. I was down there, I'm a bricklayer, I travel around the world now building blast furnaces, doing relines and that on them. And Redcar's struggling now still, with SSR, yeah. Even during the rebuild, they were struggling to get money to pay the firms that were actually doing the work.
I agree, because I travelled back from York on a train, and when I got into York, I sat next to an ex-blast furnace man coming up from London. And of course, what he talked about, where do you work? And he said exactly the same. That would be just before Christmas. And he said, don't believe what you read in the papers. It was the cash flow. They weren't getting paid for the steel they were sending to wherever it's going to. It wasn't coming back into Teeside.
When we were down there doing the reline before they started producing steel, the companies that were in there doing the work were threatening to walk off site unless they got paid. That was when the reline was going on. So the ties themselves were struggling for money then, before they started producing.
A silly question. What is the future for Teeside?
That's up to the ties, isn't it? What costs they can produce it at and where they're going to sell it.
But you got to go back to how many steelworks were in Teeside as well.
Oh yeah, there was a lot.
There was quite a few separate steel plants right away along the length of the Tees.
Skidden Grove lost the furnaces, didn't they?
Everything, they've lost all of those. I think there's only Lackenby and the Queen Art furnace that's left.
Is that the little one at Walsingham still on?
No.
That's a foundry.
That's finished, is it?
Weardale Steel.
That was a foundry.
The Bonds foundry at Towlaw, they have moved to the old, not EBAC, factory at Cook. They're absolutely going on wheels. But Weardale Steel closed for exactly the same reason, or not the same reason, but I mean, I used to do a lot of work for Weardale Steel. The Indians, Chinese, made apps. They used to do a lot of ship work for the hull frames, and all went abroad. And it's supposed to be, they've got the same problem as Concert's got. It was going to be a building site, but they found a listed building which they can't knock down, and contamination on the land, and it's still standing idle at the moment. But yeah, it's been closed 4 or 5 years, Weardale Steel. I mean, that's the other thing. They don't just steelworks. The number of foundries that was in the northeast in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, there's none now. I mean, when I started the business, we used to do what Freddie did. You went in as vultures, and we took testing equipment out of every foundry along the Tyne. And I mean, Vickers, Michelle Bairns, they all had their own foundries, but there was no demand, mainly because of imports, and they all closed within 4 or 5. I mean, we had a heyday in the 80s, going around foundries and small steelworks, taking technical equipment out, because as Fred says, they were all closing. And we bought it up for scrap.
David Roll's still going, I think, isn't it? David Roll's still going.
David Roll,
ownership now,
David Roll on the corner at
Gateshead.
They're still going. And I think Spartan Redruff, down on the teams, they're still rolling, but they're owned by the Italians. But there's no big foundries apart from Bond's foundry in Towlaw now. Cook's, I think, with Stanhope. There's a one down by the river at Stanhope.
The only big foundry I know is at Gisborne, the
10 rights, isn't that head license?
There's a big foundry down there.
There's the one down there made all the arches for the underground in London when they extended the underground. That's what they lived on. But there's no foundry. I mean, the time was unbelievable, going from Scotswood Bridge along to Redruff Bridge. But everyone, they all closed the same time as Concert. They all closed in the early 80s. I mean, we took test machines out of every single one along the time.
That's exactly it, because by 83, as I've said before, there was no shipbuilding on the south side of the river, and I can go down every single shipyard from, you know, the Middle Docks to Redheads. Redheads opened again, but every single one was closed at that point. 2
hardback books that thick in the house, Ships of the Time, big blue books I bought at sale, and there's a phenomenal number of shipyards. Well, see, that was the problem with the Pert Mill. When I worked at the Pert Mill, Austin Pickersgill, we supplied plates for every shipyard down the time. And there's not one there now, so no matter how it went, there would have been no, and that's all we were growing in the last couple of years was ship plates.
But we also supplied a lot of plate to the infantry for the nuclear subs and a lot of the...
Yeah, but they were specialist casts, but as a rule, I mean, you know, we talk about characters, but people could write Swan Hunters in the sleep on plates at the plate in Austin Pickersgill. I mean, every big plate had come down the mill, but there was no profit in it. It was just ship plate, and that's what we ended up doing at the plate mill. And that's what we said about. They took the orders away from Concert, and Teeside told us what we could roll, and Glasgow told us what we could roll, and everybody was cherry picking all the good alloy steels, making them elsewhere, and Concert was left with the mill. And we had the best mill in Europe, the biggest mill in Europe. But if you're not making a profit on quarter-inch ship plate going to Swan Hunters, they close you down, and that's what we said before. Get rid of that and you'll be okay.